Welcome back to Beauty Uncovered, sponsored by Olaplex. And today, I will admit, I was really excited when I saw you coming to this. Gunnar Deatherage. Let me tell you, I have been following you for a very long time. I'm thrilled to see you on TikTok because I am a bit of a TikTok freak. Hi, welcome.
Hey, how's it going? I'm so excited to be on the podcast with you.
I am really excited because aside from the fact that I absolutely love your designs, I love the patterns that you make. I love just the artistry in what you do. But I love your story and how you got into this. Hearing that you learned, and you're very much self-taught and learned a lot from your grandmother, was it?
It was my grandmother, yeah, that taught me how to sew.
I love the tenacity in that. Could you tell us a little bit about how you kind of got into design?
So I'm from a very small town. I grew up in a little town called Hanover, Indiana, and then later migrated to Louisville, Kentucky. But there wasn't a lot to do. And so one of the few things that we could do was crafting and creating. And I come from a very creative family. My grandmother was a seamstress. My grandfather was a woodworker, but they would, do the craft fair runs and sell their wares at little festivals. And so I always kind of was attracted to the idea of creating something from nothing. And I think that was really a great way to spend my time, especially coming from such a little place where there's not much to do.
I love that because it reminds me of my upbringing because I had 10 brothers and sisters, so we just kind of took whatever we had around the house and just, made stuff. But to really, in all honesty, that is a craft without a doubt. That is something that you really have to not only learn how to do, but to show a certain degree of creativity and self-expression. Did you feel as though you had that right from the beginning? Like, I have a vision of how I do things?
Well, I'm very particular as a human being. So if I vision something it's really what I want to happen. And if that doesn't happen, typically I lose my mind for a little while and then kind of circle back around. But I think I always had the idea that I wanted to create, especially from a young age. I knew I wanted more was kind of the root of it. I didn't see an opportunity for myself in this town. I think I graduated with 70 people in my class. So think very small. And we were one of the bigger schools around. So
wow,
small, middle of nowhere. And I just didn't see an out for me. And honestly, the only thing that I saw in the world that was kind of speaking to me weirdly was Project Runway. And I think at a young age from when it started, because I want to say it was going into middle school when it started. It just was something that to me felt like it spoke to me on a spiritual and on a creative level. And it was a goal at that point. I don't know how it became that, but watching it every week with my mom suddenly turned into me creating while watching it because it was good fuel to the energy. And then somewhere along the lines, I was well, they're doing it in an hour. I can do it fast too. And so I somewhere along the lines, that became kind of the goal. And in a weird way, what I thought was going to be my ticket out of the town. What I didn't really expect to happen was actually make it on the show.
I can't even imagine. I think of that show, and they were very much about really throwing people into scenarios that were just, you sit there and you're like, what? They're going to make what out of what? Mm-hmm. Did that seem like a challenge that was yeah, I got this, where someone that might've been let's say formally trained might have a little bit of more of a difficult time with?
I think that there is something to be said about coming into this being self-taught, because there are shortcuts that I've created in my mind to get me from point A to point D, without having to do anything in between. And I think that not having to take these formalities, it might have been a major part of the success of just being able to kind of adapt to it. Because if I look back, I don't necessarily think that my run on the show was that tremendously successful. And I think that so much of that is because I did it when I was so young.
You were 21. Very good, but also, but that's the thing. I actually, I remember you from that season.
Mhm.
I mean,
Wow.
bottom line, I remember you. So that's why I'm kind of like, admittedly, I might have geeked out a little bit when I heard that you're coming on. Because no, seriously, I remember you from that season. You had a voice. So to me, it's like, and also an out of the box thinking that I didn't see with everybody. That's why I'm like, it seems so natural with everything that you're doing on TikTok and showing everybody what you do. It's the creativity is amazing.
I weirdly, thank you, first of all. I also feel like maybe everything like in my path has been kind of leading up to like where I'm at right now. And I know a lot of people say that, but like I did not set out to become an influencer. It was never the goal. I moved to Los Angeles about 5 years ago to work as costume design. And then when that didn't work out, I was doing set design with a company called Nomad Art and Design. And we were doing, massive music videos, like crazy runs. And like, it was very gratifying because like, like you're working with people like Ariana Grande and Justin Bieber, but at the same time, like it's the hardest physically I've ever had to work. And so the pandemic kind of caused me to slow down again. And like, I hadn't sewn in like about 4 years. I just took the time off. I was feeling like I was hitting a dead end. I wasn't getting traction. It was hard to pay my bills, if I'm honest. Like, you know, uh, it sewing wasn't doing it for me. And so when the pandemic slowed me down, I was like, well, I'll start sewing again. And I had been watching TikTok and I had seen a few people doing sewing stuff. And I was like, I can do this because it's like what I do. And, the first one I posted went viral, which was like mind blowing to me because I didn't expect it. But it just, the way that, the way I've come to create on there now is, I work very quickly. I'm still doing a dress a day kind of thing sometimes. And
Wow.
I think hadn't I been on watched Project Runway growing up, seen the speed they're doing it, geared myself to be on the show, been on the show multiple times, and then I don't know if I'd be able to create and function in this atmosphere the way that I am now.
I mean, that's part of the interesting thing about these journeys, right? Because I completely relate to what you're saying. I often say, like, I sometimes wonder, how did I get here from where I was? But I literally can look at little pieces of different experiences I've had all the way up to here that seem completely unrelated, but it all comes together, right? I think that, what was it that they say? In order to really seize an opportunity, you had to have been open to the journey to begin with.
Oh, I love that. I haven't heard that, but I very much so agree with that. I actually find it like ironic in a way that like to be on this podcast and to be sponsored by Olaplex simply because one thing that not a ton of people know about me is like I did hair for 10 years to support myself. I did Aveda for the first couple years, and then I went off solo and was working in a side salon. But like hair is truly how I supported myself in my design journey for a really long time.
Wow.
My mom insisted, I could not afford to go to school for fashion design when I left. And I was also, to be honest, like afraid of that. It just felt so like foreign to me, like a big jump from the small town. And I was so connected to my mom and my grandmother that it just felt weird leaving them at the time. So my mom said, well, if you're not going to go to college, you need to be able to support yourself. You should do a trade. And always done hair. I was in show choir in high school. So like every weekend I was doing all the girls' hair. And so it was a very natural progression. And so in so many ways, they just go very hand in hand for me. Yeah. It is very symbiotic in my life that they exist together.
Well, not only that, I mean, God, I don't think I realized it when you were on the show. That probably played a big role in your presentation too.
Oh my God,
we all know hair does have everything to do with the design of everything.
Yeah.
Wow. I never even thought about it till now.
Like right before I had left, even with my own, I was like, I need to do something with my hair to set me apart. And like my mom, my favorite photo of her from when she was a kid is in the 80s. She had bleached out half of her hair white. And so right before I went on the show, I decided I was going to bleach half my hair white. So I had this Cruella de Vil thing, which kind of also played into the role that I was playing too. But to me, I was like, this will set me apart. And then also when I was able to, I struggled on the show I was a young designer. So like construction was hard for me, but I had a vision. And so I knew that if I could make it into the hair makeup room with them I could level with him and be like, listen, like, this is where I'm going for. Let's like come up with a plan together. And so I do feel like my looks were always kind of complete because of the full beauty look that was able to encompass that.
Well, I mean, it is the big picture in the long run, and
Yeah.
if you don't have that, and let's face it, I think there has been people that probably did not get the recognition that they probably should have because they didn't pay attention to everything else. And it was almost counter to what they were trying to do, if that makes sense.
I find that in every aspect of life, though. And I feel like I have learned more in the last 2 years since becoming a content creator than I've ever learned about my craft, myself, and how I interact with it. But everything is about the details. Yes, it works in fashion, but it truly works in every aspect of life. I mean, even in my videos, if it's there, it's an aesthetic choice, from the rings to the nail polish color to the fabrics. Like it's all done.
The crystals.
The crystals, the whole thing, I think that the details help paint the picture of no matter what you're working on or no matter like what you're trying to present. It really is the full picture.
It's funny. It is interesting because when you're looking at your videos and you're seeing these little details, it is very intimate. You feel as though you're like getting a little glimpse of pieces of who you are. And that, I mean, I think it contributes to a lot of your success too. Aside from like beautiful designs, you're giving a piece of us without like having to like a lot of people are giving away everything in their lives and kind of almost giving up their most autonomy. But with these little glimpses of this, it does look like pieces of your personality, and it's very subconscious.
I like that it comes off that way. So it's kind of reassuring to hear that.
It's working, Gunnar. It's working.
Yeah. I know, but I'm also like, I'm still human in the sense of like, I am always doubting what I'm doing. I'm always second guessing. And like, I do get little glimpses where I feel very like excited and proud of what I do here and there, and then I have moments where like, I find the whole thing very frustrating. It's a new way of kind of adapting yourself and your art. It is definitely an interesting way of presenting my art because I'm condensing 16, 18 hours worth of work into 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And still trying to make it feel gratifying. So that's tricky. It is nice to hear.
I find that, and it's very funny because especially when you're doing social media like that, it is exhausting to keep up the pace of it. I actually had to take like a few weeks off because it was just, oh my gosh, it was just too much. Yeah. It is exhausting. And there is a certain demand after a while, especially when you get to the point where you're at 2 million. That's got to be high pressure.
It is. It's a growing business. It's interesting. Like there are a few ways you could approach social media, right? Like there is the way of just like being entertaining and just enjoying the ride, getting the notoriety. You get like kind of comedians, kind of like a Brittany Broski. Like they're really not in it for the money. They just are kind of having fun.
Yeah.
And then you have what I like to think are like the more business-minded people that are like, well, sponsorships work with the kind of content that I do, and this is how I can support myself. And so I've always been very business savvy in that way. And so once you do graduate to a certain level, it's not just about the follower count. It's about how much content you have. I have a management team now that only makes money if I make money. I have an assistant that is helping me edit and post and like keep my life afloat. So it's like I now have a small village that my art is supporting as well as myself. And so it does become a little bit of feed the beast. It is also providing for me in a way that I was never able to provide for myself. So like it is a give and a take, but the taking time off for mental health is like very important.
Do you find that it's difficult to be authentic to yourself when there's this, like, I find that sometimes, like something will go up and you're like, oh, I like this, I'll put it up, whatever. And then there's like a big boom, everybody loves it. And then you're like, well, I suppose I create more content like that, but it's very hard to keep authentic to your branding, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that. It's funny. You can try to predict what people will gravitate towards all day long. And then it happens all the time where I'm like, I hate this dress. Like, it's fine, whatever. And then it blows up. And then there is that moment like, well, is that what I should be doing? What I've taken from those moments is that it's not that I did something in the video that resonated with people. And so I try to distill that down to like a little bit. Like sometimes I find that it's when I'm sharing a facet of my story that's relatable. And maybe it's not about the actual dress. You know what I'm saying? It's more about this like human thing that I'm deciding to share as the undertone of the video. So I try to hone in on those little things so that I don't feel so burned by creating ugly dresses. You know?
That's funny. I did, it is funny because it is true. It is your personality that I think a lot of people are kind of honing into, not to negate the art that you do, but it's, it becomes almost like your personality is art.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and some people are great at that. Some people are incredible at that. I ride this line all the time. I'm like, I didn't set out to be a personality. I mean, I guess in some ways I did because I did put myself out there as that when I was younger, but I truly approached TikTok to be a fashion designer and a DIY creator. And somewhere along the lines, I realized I'm like, well, I have to sell a little bit of personality to get there. And so, yeah, like, you are, all of it's a selling point, I guess.
It's performance art.
Yeah, it is. It truly is.
From here, I mean, where do you hope to go from here? I mean, are you looking to like expand outwardly, creating your own lines? Or is this like a niche that you're like, hey, I feel really comfortable with this. This is my pace. Because this is the interesting thing. What I'm finding in this new landscape, because what I'm finding is that a lot of people don't feel like they have to be completely attached to a brand per se. They can be autonomous. They can be, for themselves. They might come into your lives, whatever, but for the most part, they're their own brand. They don't feel as much pressure to have to sign into the big business, so to speak. Do you feel like you want to go that route? Or is it like, you know what? I'm okay with where I'm at.
This is something I kind of ride the line with a lot. It is a very fair question. I'm also, I've been in business for a long time, so I kind of understand what it's like to kind of start a startup in that way. Here's one thing I've learned. I am able to support myself, my team, and like be thankful for where I'm at with that. And I truly am not selling clothing. I'm selling an idea, and I'm selling a feeling, and I think I'm selling like a little escape from everyone's day. So it's not that I don't want to produce clothing, but I have, I was doing 3 lines a year for like 5 or 6 years, and I was producing all of it myself. If I got orders, I was making them myself. I mean, I worked myself sick, like truly. I was so exhausted all the time. I was proud of what I was doing and I loved it, but like, it wasn't prosperous. So at the moment, I'm currently pursuing television in some ways that like I'm kind of not allowed to talk about, but it's exciting. And I think I would just like to make myself a little bit more at home in everyone else's house first. And then I would like to start exploring maybe collaborations with brands that have the infrastructure set up to create things that people can actually attain. I think it allows me to be able to like really create freely without the stress of having to fully source and outsource everything. I don't know if people quite understand like the work that goes into creating a fashion collection, but setting up manufacturing is so expensive. It's so time consuming, and it's really not financially like privy. Like it's a really tricky thing to do in this day and age of fast fashion. So I think if I can find a way to carve out a space in the industry that feels authentic to me and that is ethical and ethically produced, and also another big thing for me is making sure that my size runs accommodate everyone. Yes. Very hard to do in the industry. Those are things that I would then consider, make me consider creating a line again.
I also feel like And I wonder whether or not it would be lost if it was like in a different scale. One of the things that I've always admired is your tenacity and, so to speak, of like, a person can watch what you do and hear your story. And no matter where you're at, you can sit there, whatever it is, that field that you are doing, go, I can grow into something. You know what I'm saying? Like, it blows my mind how young you were when you first went on Project One. You had to have some like a lot of guts to do that. But not just that. I think it's like the growth and the experiences and taking all those pieces and making it your own. I think that sometimes the world presents something that is being so easy. And I don't think you hide the fact that it wasn't easy.
I mean, there is a generous amount of tenacity, I think, that does come along with that, for sure.
Yes.
I like my backstory, like in a nutshell, and it's not unique to me. A lot of people have this experience, and maybe this is why people relate to me, but I was very made fun of in high school and in middle school and truly in elementary school. I mean, it was a constant theme of my upbringing. And so I feel like the tenacity was maybe rooted in a little bit of spite of needing to prove people wrong. And somewhere over the course of time that has faded away. And now it's truly just because I love what I get to do. But I love that people feel like they can do it. I think that's why it was important for me to like start my Patreon. I think that's why it was important for me to create sewing videos that had a full video tutorial. I also have a learning disability. So like I have a hard time learning from school and from a book in a traditional setting. And so at an early point of creating on TikTok and YouTube, I realized that it wasn't just creating dresses, that somewhere in the undertone, without thinking about it, I was making people feel like they could also do it. And then something clicked with me that I needed to also give them the foundation to be able to do it themselves and like inspire them to be able to create. And so there is something to be said, I think, about the way that people respond to my videos and also about what they have inspired my videos to become.
I also think that, again, even going back to having a learning disability, these are all things that I think for so many years, a lot of people didn't speak about such things. I mean, you did, but you didn't. I don't think that people understand the challenges that are associated with it. I love that TikTok is so great about talking about these things and bringing it to an awareness. It's almost like the time is now, like, for all those pieces to kind of fall into place where there are a lot of voices that maybe before were not heard are being heard right now.
I think what's cool about it is it's pulling the covers back on things that we didn't used to talk about. It's gotten rid of the idea of things being taboo. You are 100% correct in the fact that like TikTok wants to talk about it. The newer, younger generation not moving up is fearless in that way.
Oh my
and like,
gosh.
I think it's echoing.
It's amazing.
It's incredible. It is truly making waves. And I mean, I can benefit from it. I'm also like, I see in some ways how resistant I can be to sharing certain aspects of it. And like, it pays off because people nothing about your situation is that unique is what I've learned. It's that everyone's going through something. And like, if there isn't a willingness and openness to talk about it, someone else is probably going to benefit from also knowing they are not alone in going through something.
It's really funny you say that because I'm trying to remember who it was that said it to me, but they're like, oh, Danielle, there's some things you just shouldn't put out there. There's some things in life, your trials, your tribulations, you keep that to yourself, and just like your inner circle, you don't put it out there on the internet. And I'm like, do you have any idea how much you could help somebody else? Because I know when I was going through my difficult times, when I saw someone else share their story and I could go, oh, okay, I'm not alone. I thought I was alone. It's a powerful thing.
Yeah, it is. When I was on the show, the episode that I actually got eliminated on, spoiler alert, but it's been 10 years. I would imagine I've seen it. I had to make a print. And at the time, like that was like, because I'm grew up in a place that was not tech savvy. I mean, we barely had a computer. The whole thing was a real challenge for me.
Yeah.
Even operating this tablet at the time, it was just really hard.
Wasn't
My
that
mom
the
came
first
in.
time they added a tablet into this? I don't think
Yeah.
they ever did before that.
No, my season was the first season they kind of introduced technology in that way, at least on a tablet. And then, so my print was about basically being bullied. And so sharing that publicly, I at the time I was like, it was supposed to be about your heritage. And I'm like, well, we're just like a small little like white trash family. I don't know what my heritage is. So I chose to use that because it's what I knew. But I didn't realize that by sharing that, the weight that was going to carry with people, because I was getting like swarmed with messages of people just sharing their stories. And it was really hard to read because it's like, wow. I mean, in some ways I'm like, I'm so glad I'm not the only woman. In some ways I'm like, it is so sad to me that this is what people are dealing with. But by sharing it, people do resonate with it. And there is weight behind your words.
It is actually, it's very powerful, and it's very, but I do think that sometimes it's a little bit hard to take on. I was creating content at one point, and it's just like, talking about hair and whatnot. But I started getting messages from kids that are like teenagers, and they would talk about their struggles with their hair, and it would quickly turn into, that I'm ugly, I'm garbage, and you're just like, oh. And I had to like take a step back and I'm going, am I perpetuating this? Like, oh my gosh, these poor babies, I'm a mama bear. I got 3 boys. and I was that bullied kid. I was that kid that was awkward and weird and didn't quite fit in with everybody. And I'm very consciously aware of what we put out there. But in the same breath, I do think that it's them reaching out is more of them just saying, hey, you see me.
Yeah, totally.
But it is hard to take in sometimes. It might touch on a few painful memories.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, choosing to share something, you do realize like there's no cap to how many people can see it. Scary to think about. And also, everyone is going to have a story or an opinion. So it's like, it is a touchy place to be. I fight this all the time. I feel like every video I release is personal to me. And so I'm releasing my baby into the world. And like, people have opinions, it's an artistic point of view. So it's sometimes a tricky thing to navigate.
Wow. I give you a lot of credit because on a broader scale, such as yours, it must be, it has to be a lot of work, especially with the comments that come in and everything. Do you have somebody that monitors that stuff?
So the apps all have a filter, and you can actually filter out certain keywords. Yeah, so I have a pretty intensive list of keywords that I filter out. And truly, I only respond to comments for the first maybe like hour or 2 that the post is live, because beyond that, it just is kind of, I have realized that that's a little bit of a boundary that I need to set for myself, because you get caught up in it. I'm not great at it. I still find myself going back and reading the comments, but for the most part, I try to like eliminate how much I sit there and read comments, because it can be very detrimental sometimes.
Well, it's hard because you also want people to feel like they're heard, right? You want them to know, hey, I see you. But in the same breath, when you're getting to the hundreds and thousands, it's too much. It's too much.
Yeah. There are some of my videos that have like a couple 100,000 comments on YouTube. And it's like, what do you do with that?
No. Okay. So I'm an idiot. You're on YouTube?
I have almost, I think I don't know, YouTube it's its own little bubble, but I produce exclusive content for YouTube also. I have about 1.6 million followers on YouTube.
Shut the front door.
And it's growing like dramatically. It'll grow like 5,000 to 10,000 followers a day.
Not me wanting to pick up my phone. Jeez. It doesn't shock me because YouTube is just a different platform as well. And it sometimes gives you a whole different breadth of time. Like TikTok, you kind of know you've only got like a short attention span. I know I do.
But YouTube has a program called YouTube Shorts, and it is basically their version of TikTok. And it has been a massive factor of the growth on YouTube for me.
Wow. No, I think it's very interesting the way the landscape is definitely evolving. I'm wondering what's going to be the next big thing for sure. Because
isn't that the thing? We're always on the hunt.
For the longest time, it was TikTok, and no one, not TikTok, I'm sorry, Instagram. No one could beat it. And now all of a sudden TikTok came around and just blew everybody out of the way.
YouTube is kind of an interesting competitor for it because I find personally that you can make like an actual living on YouTube. Like TikTok, even with the creator fund, is not set up to be successful for people. It truly is, I think, an entertainment-based app. But YouTube is like, although entertainment-based, like you can approach it as a professional and really support yourself if you wanted to.
That's amazing. And it's very funny because I do feel as though, it's like we were saying with this younger generation, they're understanding their options when it comes to that. You know, they understand that that kind of creativity is an absolute possibility of an income, a revenue, and more power to them.
Yeah, totally. It's a lot to keep up with.
It is. Like I said, you need a village, you need a team.
You do need a team. I mean, any given week, I'm posting, let's say it's a week where I'm not losing my mind and I've already got stuff planned out, but to post across platforms to all three, and they're all a little different. It's between 9 and 12 videos a week that I post.
Wow.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah.
So do you think from here, I mean, do you ever think to yourself, oh, maybe one day I'll do a collection for, you know, New York Fashion Week or something like that? Or is that like one of those things where it's like overrated?
I think that seems like the goal for so many people, but they're just like money sucks. Like they don't make you any money. Big runway shows don't. What I would love to do personally, I believe in accessibility. I think that it would be fun to design a collection with somebody where everyone can have access. I would love to do a collection of bridal wear for David's Bridal at some point. I think that a lot of people rely on David's Bridal for affordable, beautiful options. I mean, I think that
from my former marriage, that was from David Bridal. That was like in the 90s, man.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's an attainable thing because it's everywhere. Like even small towns have a version of it. So I think it could be really cool to do an exclusive line or, you know, like even a line with like a department store. But I think that I think it would just be more fun to do something like that and I can do my artistic things on the side that are just to make me feel good. But that's kind of where I would like to see things going, I think.
I love that. I love that. Well, I wish you all the success in the world. Like I said, I enjoy you immensely, and I'm really excited to see all the great creations that you make. I suggest every one of our listeners to definitely go check out your content. I'm going on YouTube as soon as we're off, dude. As soon as we're off, I'm like, oh man, I can't believe
I love that.
You know what it is? I'm stuck on TikTok way too much. Like,
yeah, I do.
The listeners know I have a little bit of addiction, but I like YouTube as well. So
I think we all do. Honestly.
I know. It's an old school thing. I like it.
Yeah, same. Quick entertainment.
I know. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
You are so welcome. And also, I'm going to do a little shameless plug. If anybody is looking to learn how to sew, if they know absolutely nothing, I have got a series of videos. It's almost spread out like a course where it's like bite-sized bits on my Patreon. There's like multiple different tiers of it. And then also all of my sewing patterns come in the range 00 to a 32, which equates to about an extra small to a 6XL. And they're graded on different sizes. So it's not just from one size. So they're pretty true to sizing. And they all come with a video tutorial so that you can kind of get along through it and not get stuck on something. And with being on Patreon, you can ask us anytime. We have a team of people to help you work through stuff.
Okay, so I'm going to make you stay for a couple more moments because I have some questions. Because here's the thing, I do find that a lot of people are getting back to creating their own clothing again. Do you feel as though that's become more and more of a trend? Because I see it, I'm completely enthralled. It makes me want to buy a sewing machine, but I know I will never use it.
It is 1,000,000% a trend. Even from the top, I'm working like directly with YouTube a lot on a lot of DIY stuff. Like I yesterday just turned bed sheets and like an old vintage 90s dress into a ball gown. And like it is a thing, and it is inspiring people to learn how to sew. It's very cool. I think people are starting to realize that clothing falls apart from the store, and that it's fun to be able to create your own things or upcycle. And so, yeah, it is 100% a trend.
Back in the day, that's what I used to do. Like when we didn't have, two nickels to rub together, we used to go to like Goodwill or some thrift shops, and we would find things and then we would repurpose them. We would like sew them up. I would do everything by hand because machine kind of freaked me out. So I would learn these little stitches and I would figure out how to like create something that was a little bit maybe on trend at the moment.
Yeah, of course.
I have to say my favorite thing is when you would find a designer piece that was like $5.99 and you're like,
there's
like,
an excitement.
You
feel like you have to make it out of the store before anybody else. You have to get it to the counter before somebody steals it. There's a fire that comes with the thrifting when you find something.
I'm telling you, I was a big thrifter. I grew up on Long Island. So, I mean, you had certain areas that you knew to go to because there was a certain demographic that was dropping off all their stuff.
What part did you grow up in?
We were on the South Shore. We were in Seaford, Montauk, Massapequa area. But I actually worked on the North Shore, Gold Coast.
My boyfriend is from Bayville.
Okay. Because I was going to say we would go to like Huntington. Yeah. We would go to all these different towns that had these great thrift shops that you can like find some of the greatest stuff. All you had to find was one piece that had a designer label on it, and you knew they were sprinkled throughout because it's usually a person that had like, that's what they bought, you know?
Yeah.
And so when you found that one piece, you're like, don't let it. I'm on the hunt.
Love it.
I still have stuff that I still have like 20 years later, and it's still relevant today. So yeah, I love
that about fashion. It just always comes back around.
I really did enjoy that. The hunt was always a lot more fun.
You should do it. Treat yourself to a little date day. Go thrifting.
I'll have to do that. All right. I will give you your time back. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. If you guys need anything else, let me know. I can send over anything you need.
Thank you.